It's not a pretty world, but that's the direction we're heading right now, is a direction of he's going to take this Panama Canal. If you don't think he's going to take the Panama Canal, you don't know Donald Trump. And I'm pretty sure he's going to end up buying Greenland as well, because you don't know Donald Trump if you think he's not. And then with Canada, we may not make Canada part of the United States, but look at the United States. He's set it forth. We're not going to give you $100 billion of subsidies. That just isn't going to happen. How does Canada survive without American subsidies? It either becomes a part of America or it subordinates itself totally to America so that its economy is de facto extension of the American economy. That's the direction that Trump is taking it. And given the political dysfunction in Canada, this is the reason why Trump is able to do this, because all across Europe and Canada and elsewhere in the Western world, you have these dysfunctional neoliberal governments that have been in place, these political and economic elites that have been, ruling based upon a world that was built on the foundation of the rules-based international order. That's the American-dominated system. The world needs to wake up, and normally people would say, if you just hold your breath for 4 years, we can ride this one out. You ain't riding this one out. First of all, there's no political opposition to Donald Trump in the United States whatsoever. You remember how he was called enemy of democracy? You can't let him in because it's the death of democracy. The world's going to end. He's the worst thing in the world. Yesterday, Congress went, yeah, he's the president. All the Democrats who said he's a threat to democracy, the same thing as Adolf Hitler, didn't raise a stink. Why? Because they stand for nothing. They are nothing. They have no power. They have no ability to impose their will on this man who will govern as a veritable dictator. I'm not proud of this. I'm not defending it. I'm just telling you what the facts are. And as an American, these are ugly facts. Nobody wants a president governing in that fashion, but he's going to. And he's going to empower his vice president, J.D. Vance, who's a very young man. And J.D. Vance will become the face of this new political revolution in America called MAGA. And he will become president in 4 years. And he will have an 8-year presidency because the Democrats will not be able to challenge him. And if he's wise in his selection of a vice president, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, she will become president and she will rule for 8 years. So we're looking at a 20-year run right now of MAGA. And in 20 years, because there is no opposition to us worthy of the name, both here in the United States and around the world, America can't succeed as a democracy amongst democracies. America can only succeed if we dominate our neighbors. And we are looking at decades of American domination of both Mexico and Canada. You see the open mocking of Canada right now by Donald Trump. Open mocking of it. Is he serious about absorbing Canada? Right now, I still think it's a joke, but I'm telling you what, Fortress America functions better if Canada is under our political and economic domination. Now, we can do that either by transforming it into an extension of the United States or by having its government basically get on its knees and do whatever we want. Mexico, more difficult problem, but nonetheless, if we solidify relations to the north, seal that up, we can pacify Mexico, and we'll do the same thing. We'll make Mexico yield to us, and then we'll make all of South America yield to us. And now we've defined Fortress America. And with the resources contained in there, the United States doesn't need to worry about competing with China for African and Asian resources for survival. We'll now do it just for economic domination. Who wants to get close to the United Kingdom right now? It stinks. It's rancid. It's horrible. It's not a model for anything. I mean, even if the Ukrainians weren't so delusional, they'd look to the British and say, you guys can't even manage your own affairs. You're going to sit here and tell me how to run a multi-brigade offensive operation in Kursk when you can't even get one brigade out of the barracks. Starmer's history. There's going to be an election and he's done. He's finished. Who's going to replace him? We don't know. Maybe Andrew Tate, but we don't know. Europe, Schultz is gone. There's going to be a vote, an election. Maybe AfD wins. AfD is going to be there. It's going to be powerful. That's a change. Europe is changing. In France, Emmanuel Macron, over 60% of the population want him gone. Over 50% of the population want to dissolve the government. If this happens, Marine Le Pen's party is going to win. There'll be a dramatic change in the policy. This is such crap. I wish he had tried to pull this with me because I'd point out a couple things. First of all, Blinken, let's look at the last couple times you went to China. You weren't treated well. You weren't treated, the red carpet didn't come out. You didn't get the meetings. You're treated like the misbehaving schoolboy that you are. You were scolded and then you were sent on your way. You accomplished nothing. That's the reality of it. He's making it sound as though he came in as Tony Blinken and he sat down in a room and the weak little Chinese foreign minister was complaining about this. For 60 minutes, he was complaining. That's not it. Blinken was left waiting for hours, brought in, standing there alone while the Chinese went, You're an idiot. You're screwed. You're stupid. Get out of here. There won't be a joint press conference. That's how he was treated. That's the reality. First of all, I do believe that this is a continuation of the British advice being given to Zelensky, that the British general staff and the British military, together with their intelligence services, are behind shaping the strategic posturing of Ukraine in order to keep Ukraine in the fight. In fact, I think there was something written about that where that's exactly the language. How do we keep Ukraine in the fight? It's a traditionally British way of phrasing something. Who are you talking about wanting to do what to whom? You want Ukraine to get closer to Europe? There is no Europe. Europe's finished. Europe is nothing. It's a blue flag with yellow stars. That's it. There's nothing to Europe right now. It is collapsing as we speak. Get closer to NATO? NATO's finished. NATO is done. Donald Trump doesn't want NATO. He's going to cashier NATO. He's going to get out of this. He's going to set up the big trap where he's going to say if Europe and NATO want to be viable, they have to fund themselves. And nobody can fund it. He's going to say, I'm pulling the plug. I'm done. I'm finished. First of all, you speak of Zelensky as if he's politically viable. Zelensky's dead man walking. He's not going to be president of Ukraine for much longer. He has no legitimacy. He's not going to sit at a negotiating table. And if he starts playing stupid games with Donald Trump, will just pull the plug until somebody puts a bullet in Zelensky's brain or kicks him out of the country. Zelensky isn't the solution. He's the problem. And everybody recognizes this. Right now, as long as Biden's in, they can't be honest about it. But watch how quickly the tables turn on Zelensky. He's the problem. Watch the parade of press reports come out about the corruption of Zelensky, the incompetence of Zelensky. It's all the stories that the Western media has suppressed or been ordered to suppress for years will now start coming about how absolutely horrific of a leader this man is. His drug abuse, his inability to focus. You saw the interview. I don't have to say it to you. You know what you saw. You know what you saw. You know it. Everybody knows it, but nobody wants to admit it. The man is a drug addict. The man is under the influence of chemicals. His brain is fried. That is not that the thinking there is not the thinking of a rational man. It's the kind of conversation you have with somebody who's been up for a week, popping pills to stay awake, and the twitchy and the inability to coherently go forward and wrap everything up, just the whole twitchy aspect of his persona. The man is a disaster. And so the idea that Zelensky's going to hold Trump hostage to anything, first of all, there isn't going to be a NATO for Ukraine to join. Donald Trump is making this as clear as possible. You just watch how quick he's going to turn to NATO and say, nah, if you guys want to exist, you got to put the money up. We're not going to do that. And if NATO starts giving him pushback, he says, we're out of NATO. We're out. We're done. We're finished. And he's looking for an excuse to do that. And to be honest, again, once Trump is in power, all of the backstabbing that's taking place right now, where Europe is bad-mouthing Trump, stabbing Trump in the back, doing policies designed to tie his hands. Trump is a vindictive son of a bitch. You think Donald Trump is going to sit there and let this stuff happen and not do anything about it? I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's sound. I'm just saying that's who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump takes everything personally. That's why, Vladimir, look at what Putin has done. What insults has put out there towards Trump? Not a single one. And he could. Instead, he was glowing about Donald Trump, about the courage of this man when he was shot, how it showed the true character of this person, standing up, fight. Donald Trump is resilient, is brilliant, is this. Trump's listening to that. Then he's turning around and looking at all the Europeans plotting behind his back as if he's not going to be president. That's what I don't understand. These people are going, hi. Okay, now we're going to screw him this way. We're going to do this. Okay, I want you to do this. Hi. Okay, we're going to do. And Trump's just sitting there going, guys, I can hear you. I hear you. I'm going to screw you. You're dead. You're dead to me. That's okay. Blah, blah. Trump doesn't care about Europe. Doesn't at all. That's what Europe's going to find out. See, Biden has this, establishment nostalgia for Europe. NATO is a sacred, oh man, he almost cries when he says it's a sacred obligation. Article 5, a sacred. No, it's not. First of all, read it. Nothing sacred about that. It just basically says, yeah, we'll consider it. That's it. That's all Article 5 says. We'll consider it. No, it doesn't compel you to do anything except consider it. Yeah, we may give you military force, but we're not compelled to. We don't have to. That's Article 5. That's the reality of Article 5. Trump only associates with winners. Europe is not a winner right now. They are losers with a capital L stapled to their head, and they're only getting worse. NATO is a finished organization. It's done. So now Ukraine, Zelensky is so stupid he doesn't understand the predicament that he's in. First of all, he doesn't realize that he's been sacrificed. Tony Blinken just gave a ridiculous farewell interview to the New York Times where he talks about, we secretly gave them javelins and stingers. Come on, Tony, don't pretend that this all started in 2022. How about we secretly built bases in Western Ukraine where we were training them back in 2015 all the way up to 2022 to fight a war with Russia. Yeah. Oh, wait, Tony, but we can go back even more. We secretly overthrew the government of Viktor Yanukovych in 2014 because we couldn't have Russian political elites in Ukraine interfering with our grand strategy of using Ukraine as a tool to bring down Russia. Tony, we can go back even more. We secretly empowered the Western Ukrainian nationalists to steal an election in 2004, 2005 that Viktor Yanukovych won. He did win it, yes, but no, we came in with the Orange Revolution and undid it illegally, put in Western Ukrainian nationalists who were supposed to permanently suppress the Russian political voice of Viktor Yanukovych. But it didn't work because in 2010, Viktor Yanukovych got reelected. And that we went cannot be allowed to happen. We can't have the Russians of Ukraine being politically viable because they interfere with our master plan of using Ukraine to bring down Russia. So 2014 came in, and we can keep going all the way back to 1948, 1949, where we made common cause with the Galen organization to ally ourselves with the Banderist movement inside Ukraine, and we provided them with arms, weaponry, we parachuted troops in to keep an insurgency going designed to undermine Soviet authority. This is something we've been doing from day one. So you have a fresh face like Andrew Tate coming in who isn't afraid to talk, he has no constituency of corrupt power elites that he has to worry about. He's just going to say things. I don't know if he's going to win. It's a long shot. But hey, that's revolutionary change. That's what's happening in Europe, is things that would have been considered a long shot or impossible are now possible or can be envisioned because of the corruption of the political and economic elite who have committed suicide by sanctioning Russia and getting entangled in this conflict in Ukraine. That's the reality. And Zelensky's living in a neverland to pretend that somehow he is the victim of Russian aggression. No, he is the victim of Western lies, of a Western strategy that has always from day one been about sacrificing Ukraine for the larger objective of bringing down Russia. Zelensky, you're being sacrificed right now. How does it feel? That's the reality. Nobody likes to talk about it. We like to pretend that Russia is the aggressor, that this is all because of Russia. Russia is the only power that has sought a peaceful outcome here. The only power. The Minsk Accords were something that France and Germany went and begged Putin to go into, even though Russia was giving up all of the advantages that had been accrued up until that point. But Putin did it. Why? Looking for a peaceful outcome. And then for several years, Putin was jerked around by these people. In June of 2021, Putin confronted Biden in Geneva and said, we need Minsk. If you want to stop the Russian troop movements that you're so worried about, Russian troop movements on Russian soil, tend to forget that little finer point. But if you want to stop that, Minsk, make it happen. Biden promised, but then Blinken lied. Blinken didn't do anything, did the opposite because they never wanted Minsk. Why? I found out Angela Merkel, Francois Hollande, and Poroshenko, the Ukrainian president, all admitted it's a sham. It was a fake. It was a lie. It was designed to buy time, to build up the Ukrainian army so that they could seize control of the Donbass. That's what Minsk was about, a lie. And even after the Russians confronted the French and the Germans about their lie in the fall of 2021 and finally got acknowledgement from them that they weren't going to push for Minsk, and Russia said Minsk is dead, they didn't invade. They tried to put draft treaties out there. December 17th, 2021, 2 treaties, one to NATO, one to the United States, seeking a new European security framework to avoid the war that the West wanted. The West wanted this war. Tony Blinken secretly providing ammunition to them for this war. Russia didn't want this war. Blinken did. Now there's 1 million dead Ukrainians whose blood is on the hands of Tony Blinken, the United States, Francois Hollande, Angela Merkel, and every single European and American politician who supported that policy. You know who doesn't have any Ukrainian blood on his hand? Vladimir Putin, because he didn't want this. The only thing that makes Volkswagen profitable in this post-Ukraine conflict world is China. It's the only place we turn a profit. And we just have to turn enough profit that it makes up for all the losses elsewhere and keeps Volkswagen in the black so we can keep employing people at home. You don't want to de-risk or de-link or do any of this because that'll be the end of Volkswagen. You can't do that. They did. It was the end of Volkswagen. They're done. They're shutting down factories and everything. That's the reality of it. That's what America wanted. Blinken, again, he said something. Europe was starting together to have a strategic trade relationship with China. Why? Europe would thrive. We didn't want that. We had to bring him into it. So we created a war that got Europe involved in the war. And the war then could be spun in a way that said, in order for Europe to prevail in the conflict they have in Ukraine, they have to put pressure on China to separate from Russia, which means you have to put economic, and that trade deal is impossible. And Blinken's calling this diplomacy. He's bragging as if this is genius diplomacy. It's not diplomacy, it's lunacy. It's insanity. And the sad thing is that Europe went along with it. But is Blinken really going to write a book about how we screwed Europe? The Lessons in American Diplomacy 101. I can see him teaching his class now, whatever university takes him at Harvard. Yes, I'm going to teach in Diplomacy 101 today. We're going to discuss the genius of American foreign policy as we intervene diplomatically to get Europe to wean itself off of its overdependence upon China. That sounds good. What happened to Europe? Oh, they collapsed and died, and the European Union went away, and it just, total screw for everybody. What happened to China? Oh, they emerged stronger and more expansive. And this is a diplomatic victory. See, there's no diplomatic victory. Who are you talking about wanting to do what to whom? You want Ukraine to get closer to Europe? There is no Europe. Europe's finished. Europe is nothing. It's a blue flag with yellow stars. That's it. There's nothing to Europe right now. It is collapsing as we speak. Get closer to NATO? NATO's finished. NATO is done. Donald Trump doesn't want NATO. He's going to cashier NATO. He's going to get out of this. He's going to set up the big trap where he's going to say if Europe and NATO want to be viable, they have to fund themselves. And nobody can fund it. He's going to say, I'm pulling the plug. I'm done. I'm finished.